not to treat public administration reform and digitalization as two separate things. There is interdependency, so public administration needs to be empowered by digitalization, and digitalization can only be done by capable public administration.
Welcome to the Digital Government Podcast. Tune in to discover the future of governance and ways of getting there.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Digital Government Podcast with your usual host, Federico Plantera, journalist and researcher based in Brussels. Today, catching up with Margus Sarapuu, who is a senior expert in the Competence Center at the Governance Academy on governance and engagement. And today is joining us to talk about public administration reform and digitalization. Margus, not your first time on the podcast, so welcome back to you as well.
Hello, and nice to be back again.
So I would say that we can start not where we left off the last time. The last time we spoke about bureaucracy, and just as a refresher, let's say, for people, considering that this is a very salient and current affairs, let's say, topic as well, in terms of the pendulum effect that we said the other time, no, of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy expands and then also restricts, let's say. It limits itself at some point. This is something that is happening, that is being talked about a lot in the EU at the moment, for example. But instead, today, we are, I would say, maybe expanding the scope a little bit and at the same time putting in connection what public administration reform means and what's the role of digitalization in it. How do the two terms interact? Because sometimes governments still see them as separate tracks. So I would say let's start from framing this interdependence. So you worked on public administration reform in Estonia, Kosovo, Moldova. So what made you conclude basically that public administration reform, in short, PAR, and digitalization are actually inseparable? And why do you think that governments still try to treat them as separate tracks?
It's not very difficult to notice, actually, because you can see it when you look at strategies and institutions and how the responsibilities are divided. So often you have a separate strategy for public administration reform, a separate strategy for e-government. Then you have a separate institution responsible for public administration reform and a separate institution responsible for digital transformation. And so, I mean, you might say that this not seeing those two things connected inseparably is visibly when you look at the kind of these documents and institutions. Why I think they are, at least nowadays, very much connected, and it's because in order to have any strong public administration or effective public administration, nowadays this is not possible without digitalization. So any public administration reform must have some digitalization component or digitalization support. Otherwise, it's not just possible. And it's also otherwise around. So in order to deliver any digital transformation or digitalization reform, you need a strong public administration. Because if you don't have those capacities within administration, then most possibly IT solutions, what will be provided, will be not of good quality, let's put it like this. So in a way, they are like interconnected in this way that they can't effectively be delivered without each other.
So public administration reform is not possible without digitalization. But then also digitalization cannot succeed without public administration reform. Yes, we understood that the two things go together hand in hand, but is there maybe like some sort of sequencing problem about it? Is there like a chicken and egg dilemma? I'm not gonna get too philosophical in here, but basically, In countries where there are rigid or outdated administrative systems, let's say, what are, in your opinion, the main challenges when digitalization is introduced first? And then I would say also vice versa. So, what happens instead when governments directly digitalize existing bureaucracy, basically, but without redesigning it?
Yes, so if you have a strong legacy, then it is, of course, it's a question of resistance of the system, because people might ask, why do we have to change if it's working? But also, if it's kind of like skills and mindset questions. So if those things are not changed, then solutions might end up just duplicating processes what we have on the paper. And this is a quite big problem, because digital reforms very often are sold as bringing us effectiveness gains and better services. But can you imagine if you used to do things in an old way, and now you have additional layer which is called digital support, and you have to manage your work in the new digital environment, at the same time also doing paperwork like you used to do. If this is in within the administration, it is a problem, but it's a smaller problem. If for the citizen you have digital service and you prefer to use it, but and you are going to use it, but at the same time you are still required to submit papers and carry around papers and documents, then for citizen it's the same thing, that you are offered a digital option, but this legacy system is still also there, requiring to do things in old time. So from this point of view, it is not possible to have a good digital services without re-engineering processes and organizations in itself. The other way around, if you jump into digitalization and you have weak capacities, you run into ownership and sustainability issues. So you may have some outsourced solution provided by outside vendor, and if you don't have in-house capacities, you are very much reliant on what your provider is offering you, and kind of like a lock-in. And in this regards, it becomes an issue, because it might end up being more expensive solution, or it's also quite rigid to change if you are locked with a certain type of vendor. So you must have like internal capacities also when you do digitalization in both regards. Either you have strong administration or you have weak administration.
Yeah, I would say that this is also connected to a wider topic of how, for example, ICT and digitalization have been rolled out, let's say, through the past years in public administration, or in any case by government action. What do I mean? Is that, for example, when the internet came, then there were definitely a lot of people in many governments who thought, this is going to solve everything regarding our bureaucracy problems or problems of interaction between citizens and the state. Obviously, then it turned out that in order for that to happen, there are certain things that you need to do first, or at least in parallel, for that to be effective. Then, for example, about 10 years ago, it was the moment of blockchain or decentralized networks, let's say. And many thought, this is going to solve everything. And then actually it didn't. And now, for example, we are talking instead about artificial intelligence in government. And I feel that in a kind of similar way, for example, there are some administrations that are thinking, okay, so now with agentic AI, for example, we can just have an agent that goes through the different databases and information systems, retrieves the information that you need, and then sort of like even develops this user journey almost on its own. And it's able, let's say, potentially to reflect to the user and to the end user the result that they are looking for in an administrative process. I'm making this little recap exactly to show that yes, the possibilities are there, but there are exactly other things that need to happen either in parallel or before that. And especially I'm talking about a redesigning of the processes that lead ultimately to that outcome. This seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Margus, something that that proves to be quite difficult, let's say, to do for governments and especially for public administrations that, as you said, have legacy systems, which doesn't mean just technological, like information systems. It means also systems of working together, systems of functioning, let's say. So across the countries that you have advised, no, or examples that you're seeing also in general overall, what do you think are the recurring reasons why public administration reform and digitalization efforts might stall or even fail, let's say? Are they about political cycles, interagency cooperation? What is it basically blocking it often?
I think being honest about your status would be a good idea to start. Like there is lots of rhetoric about often which are not reality about what is the potential of the country and where we are and then what we want to achieve, especially in comparison with other countries. So honesty about the current situation would be a good start. When you are not honest about what you are missing or where your problems are, you might jump into all those hypes what you've been also mentioning, like blockchain and AI. And you might ask, why is this problem if you jump into every new idea what comes along? Well, the problem is that if foundations are not in place, then it means that your resources are going into some advanced solutions for which you do not have yet digital infrastructure, you don't have capacities, you don't have quality data, you don't have this cooperational mindset and structure. So actually, it means that everyone rhetorically might say that yes, I mean this is good idea, but we end up definitely in this implementation gap. And implementation gap usually when you go after wrong, I mean not wrong solutions, but let's say solutions for which you do not have yet capacity, means that you are wasting valuable resources. So what is important is that beyond rhetoric, that yes, we want to do digitalization, it is very important to start from the right place, like fix the foundations first, and then also shows that beyond rhetoric you have also action, and action usually is that you are ready to invest resources. And what is the difference between cost and investment is that if you do a cost, then it is just a cost. But if you see it as a cost which also brings benefits, then it becomes an investment. And I think a problem with those wrong decisions which are not going into right direction, it is that instead of investments they become cost. Another issue, of course, is what you mentioned is cooperation. There is lots of NIMBY, like not in my backyard attitudes that yes, I like digitalization, I like cooperation, but my case is special why this cannot be done. Another problem with cooperation is that how to share profit, because often it means that one institution has to invest while perhaps the other institution gets the benefits and saves maybe resources. So now how do you make this institution interested in making investment while this profit is not shared with all the stakeholders in this picture? And finally, I would also point out one kind of, I don't know, psychological issue. I've been observing now this debate in UK and Switzerland about digital identity, for example. And that is kind of, I don't know, what is a good word? Is it like a fear or is it like a distrust to the government? But basically, practically, we all understand that if you have digital identity in place, then this would make service delivery very much easier, not just for public sector, but also for private sector. But for some reason, there is a deep-rooted distrust in regards to the solutions, and things are not just happening. Even so that the political rhetoric is very strongly behind it. So many different reasons why beyond rhetoric things just are not happening.
However, exactly because since you brought in examples from other countries, I would say let's open a wide parenthesis here. Let's get into a little bit of like country examples, because Estonia is one of the countries where exactly there were specific decisions or conditions within the country's own reform journey, let's say, that were decisive towards the implementation, the adoption, and use, widespread use of many of the digital tools that we think of in relation or within the framework of public administration reform. Which ones of these, for example, that come from Estonia's journey, do you think that are actually transferable to other contexts? But maybe together with mentioning which ones, we could also say, what could be, in your opinion, some factors that are not specific to Estonia, that, let's say, that don't make Estonia's story as unique and specific, that can instead make other people in other countries and in other public administrations think, actually, this could work for me too?
Yeah, I think Estonian case is like you have to think in kind of in this concrete time when things were happening, and it was like a collapse of Soviet Union. Democracy was still like very popular, and luckily for Estonia, this generation who came to power after the collapse of Soviet Union was young. They were inexperienced in governance, but it means also like they were like very open-minded. And if you take from kind of this kind of benchmarking point of view, then this situation or opportunity is not always there for other countries, and also this kind of enthusiasm about certain types of governance models are not also there. At this time, everybody was pro-democracy. Nowadays, we see that there are like lots of challenges in this regards. So I think we were lucky, but if you ask me like what is my definition of being lucky is, then it means that where opportunity meets preparation. And sometimes for things to happen, it's like very narrow window of opportunity. And so you have to be just prepared to use this opportunity. And Estonia was able to use this narrow window of opportunity and was prepared for that. In this regard, for example, like when I'm thinking of countries like Moldova, there were two elections where EU sentiment won, and this is opportunity, and this opportunity may not repeat in future. So I think it's very important that now within those next years, like back in time in Estonia, during those few years, it is possible to reform the government in a way that people and citizens will see the benefits of pro-European democratic government. So this is why I'm saying that kind of ability to seize this opportunity is very important. To top up, I think Estonia, after this kind of being lucky, we had very clear strategic priorities, and becoming a member of the European Union and NATO was one of them. So again, like for any country, having this kind of strategic goal fixed into political agenda, but also streamlined into the governance priorities. This is something that was done in Estonia because after we became a member of European Union, and people asked like, okay, now what? Like, I mean, what is our next big goal? Like, what mobilizes people to reform? But finally, I would like to bring out one very specific Estonian case as well. It's a private sector, and I think before Estonian e-governance became like kind of a thing in itself, there was a private sector who was quite advanced in digital services, especially like e-banking. And I think onboarding to this digital mindset was done by private sector. So when government came in, then people were demanding same level good digital services as they got used to in private sector, for example. And that's why I want to bring also a last component, and this is people, because I think one thing what is specific in Estonia is that actually public administration reform, be it like administrative burden reduction or digitalization or however you call it or frame it, people care about this, and this means that also politicians, they must somehow respond to the demands of people to provide better services, and especially in a digital way. So people's demand for good services is very important here to mobilize political support to move ahead also with reforms and digitalization.
Margus, but then considering that you have already brought up some elements, I would say that we can, I mean, it's not like they are secret ingredients, but they do form kind of a recipe, let's say, for public administration reform. I will ask you in a sec about examples maybe from other countries so that we don't stick just to the Estonian story. But if you were then to get into, for example, a little recipe, a grocery store list, let's say, of ingredients for successful public administration reform. Maybe there's leadership, but you've mentioned things about people's expectations as well. So what are the non-negotiable elements at this point for successful public administration reform?
So can I still repeat leadership? Because if one institution is able to be more successful and another one is not, then the only good reason behind it is that actually providing good services is prioritized by leadership. So it's not kind of like just abstract thing, but it's very concrete thing. And how it relates now to public administration reform is that leadership, especially political leadership, like beyond rhetoric, means that you invest resources, and putting in money, it can be like also waste of money unless it is done if it's not spent in a way that it provides value. And that's where public administration reform comes into picture, because only capable administration is able to spend those taxpayers' money in a way that it also provides real value, be it in social services or any other services. So for that main reason, public administration reform is crucial.
So in light of this, and also of your own work and that of the Governance Academy in different regions of the world, I'm thinking, for example, Ukraine, Kosovo, Bangladesh, we already spoke of Moldova. What are, based on the ingredients of the recipe that we have just talked about, what are some very virtuous, let's say, examples of this public administration reform paired with digitalization that bears returns, be them for the public administration, be them for the private sector, I would say basically then for society overall?
Yes, what is interesting about those four countries is that they can all be characterized by one thing, which is like instability, but very different type of instability. So I mean, when we talk about Ukraine, we all know that they are fighting back aggression by Russia. And what is interesting learning point here is that the way they had managed to reform the government, especially in regards of digitalization, has created a certain level of resilience, which has allowed them to fight back much more effectively. And the second learning point, of course, that when you are in crisis and all textbooks, how reforms have to be made, they are thrown out of the window, and you have to just do it fast, because doing it fast is the only way how you can survive. And I think from Ukraine now we can see not only how things can be done also in wartime, and society is functioning during wartime, but how resilient government supported by digitalization is part of actually winning the war. So I think that's a lesson we all have to take note of. When we talk about Kosovo, I mean, obviously there is no hot conflict ongoing like in Ukraine, but they have not recognized by all countries, UN member countries, and even by 5 EU member countries. So you might say that this is somehow dragging them back in doing reforms. Also, perspective of joining European Union one day in future is still like very motivating for them to align all the reforms with the EU agendas and so on. But if you look again like into the country and you leave aside this non-recognition and problems with a bigger neighbor, you can see that this political situation is quite uncompromising. So after elections, they haven't been able to form the government for more than half a year, and they are now moving again to have another elections. I mean, this of course doesn't make doing reforms easier, and they have lost probably a year at least in doing those reforms. So very different situations, like when we compare Ukraine, but let's say that in much worse situation, Ukraine has managed to do reforms. And in a situation where Kosovo is, they don't have or they don't feel this urgency to do the reforms. Bangladesh as well, they experienced a revolution recently, and as a new government, legitimate government elected by elections has not stepped in, then that is kind of like a standstill as well. That and that brings us back to this leadership question, that if you don't have this stability in regards like who has a mandate from government and to do what, then also like reforms are waiting for the persons to like who come and say like, okay, what shall we do now? So considering how big Bangladesh is and so on, I mean, it's a challenge in itself. So definitely they would need some kind of legitimate government to start doing reforms. And Moldova, as I mentioned, like, you know, they have, I think, historic opportunity now after elections that just to align and enforce the reforms towards European Union, and both in regards public administration reform and also digitalization. As I said, they are both interconnected.
Then I would say let's close it exactly with a message at this point to the leaders who are in the government or the leaders who are in public administration and listening to this episode. Margus, what is in 2 sentences, 3 sentences, what's the single most important thing that you would like them to understand about the future exactly of public administration reform?
I would underline two things. So first is that we have to be honest about what the problem is, and perhaps then we are able to provide also correct solution. It's like a doctor who is giving you a diagnosis, and based on a correct diagnosis, you can also prescribe correct treatment. So I think it's a kind of same way. And second thing is that not to treat public administration reform and digitalization as two separate things. There is interdependency. So public administration needs to be empowered by digitalization, and digitalization can only be done by capable public administration.
So government leaders, be a bit more like doctors. And Margus, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot also to everybody who tuned in to this episode of the Digital Government Podcast. That's it. Also from your usual host, Federico, and I will see you all at the next one.
This podcast is brought to you by the eGovernance Academy. Tune in next time.